Hey guys! So today I thought we would talk about being a sub in an orchestra or band or whatever ensemble you are playing in. So because New Music Ensemble is a ensemble that rehearses at a very different time from all the other major ensembles at IU, I've become relatively available to sub for other people. And so that means I've had a lot of experience in this now. And I thought I'd pass on some of the things that I've learned over the past year or so, and things to help you be a better sub and have a better experience. Um, so the first thing is make sure that the person who's asking you to sub has notified anyone who needs to know. Here at IU, there's an orchestra manager that you have to email, and usually he wants to approve your subs. That isn't necessarily always a possibility. Like, if you're sick, it's just kind of like, who can do this? But I know I needed a sub for Bohème last year, and he gave me a list of names that were acceptable people. So make sure that whoever needs to be notified has been notified. It's not really your job, but it makes your life easier if you're aware of the fact that whoever needs to be there, whoever needs to know, knows, so that you're not just going in and your conductor's like, who are you and why are you here? That being said, it's not your job, and you should not be penalized for subbing for someone who didn't go through the proper procedure, but it makes your life a little easier if you make sure that they have. Second thing is, if you can get the part a little early, like it's a sub that you had been scheduled for a long time, and you can actually look at the part and see what things are tricky and everything like that, do it. It'll make your life a lot easier. You won't be sight reading, and it'll make sitting through a 2-hour rehearsal on a piece you've never played a little bit easier. If that's not possible, like it's a last minute thing or the part just isn't available, then ask your section members what things are really difficult, what things you should look at, and then just try to get as much as you can before rehearsal. In the break, just continue working through some things. Like, take the time that you have to figure out what you need to work on, because that way you won't be flailing through the really, really hard sections. You might still be flailing a little bit, but at least you have a better idea. As a sub, you don't know meter patterns, everything like that, so it's really, really important that you watch your conductor. Obviously, it's really important in any rehearsal, but it's really even more important when you are basically sight reading when the rest of the orchestra isn't. And so it's all eyes on them as much as you can. If there's something tricky coming up, you can turn to the people in your section who have been in rehearsal and go like, hey, how are they doing this? Like, use your resources as much as you can, but in the end, your savior is going to be basically staring your conductor down. I have mixed feelings about marking things. Obviously, if they tell the section something, that's going to be something that you have to do for the next rehearsal. Mark it. Like, if they want you to play something a little softer or want something stylistically different, then definitely mark it so that the person you're subbing for can come back and be like, oh, okay, they're doing this now. I like to leave a little note being like, hey, this happened. These are the things that they mentioned. But like, if you miss a note or things that you personally can't play, don't necessarily mark it, because it might throw that person off, and it's their part. So like, notes, rhythms that I would beam out or things like that, I try to leave alone because it's not my part and I don't know how the person works, so I don't want to throw them off by marking off their part in a way that they don't want me to. That being said, if you're missing a note like over and over and over, just mark it quickly and then try to erase it at the end. But all in all, really just mark things that are major rehearsal changes, not your own personal thing. It's really, really important to not take over the section. You might be older than some of the people you're playing with, you might be more experienced than some of the people you're playing with, but you're not a part of that section. Especially if you're playing second or piccolo, you are suddenly their second player. You have to defer to them. You can ask them questions and everything like that, but don't tell them what to do, don't correct them, don't do anything like that unless they ask for advice. And even then, you are not part of that section. You are a temporary member, and you are going to leave the next day, or whenever your subbing term ends, and it's no longer going to be your section. If you're playing principal as a sub, which doesn't generally happen, at least for most of the orchestras I've played in, if you need a sub for first, the second player takes over first, and the sub will play second. So that way the person who knows the piece better is going to be playing principal. Granted, they're still sight reading, but they've been in rehearsals, they know how things line up, and it's a little easier for that to happen. Obviously, talk to whoever organizes personnel before you do that, but that's generally how it works, because it just works a little smoother. But if for some reason you are subbing first, you still have to lead the section, but try to leave your comments at a minimum, because it's not your section, and for all you know, you're counteracting something that their actual principal has said. If something's really not working, you can do your best to try to help, but it's really try to be as invisible as you can. And basically just be really, really polite and really respectful, because you're a guest. It's like you're coming into someone else's house and you're having dinner. You obviously want to be respectful. And that's what a sub needs to be. You aren't part of the section. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you are not part of the section. You are for those 2 hours, but when those 2 hours are up, you're no longer there. You were literally just filling the chair. And I know that's a really hard way to look at it, but it's true. And it will leave a better taste in the rest of the section's mouth if you don't step on any toes. Just go in, play, and leave. And that's your job. And that's hard. And stressful sight reading is really hard. Dress rehearsals are the worst. But it's a really good experience. It really elevates your playing, because you're suddenly, like, required to do everything that they've had weeks of rehearsal on, and you've seen for about 10 minutes. So, if someone asks you to do it, take it as a challenge. But again, don't step on any toes. I hope that's somewhat helpful. I know subbing is kind of a hard thing, especially for younger musicians, because you don't really know what to do. And it took me a long time to really figure out that, and I'm kind of a loudmouth, so it's hard for me to step back. And so that's really that's why I'm harping on that so much, is because I don't want to piss more people off. So yeah. As always, if you guys have video ideas, please let me know, and I will see you next week.